Buddy, put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com, where you'll find links to the audio-only stream, the podcast, the links to social media, and pretty much everything else you could possibly want over there at michaeldukeshow.com. Welcome to the program, and thanks for coming in and joining us. It is hour one of Tuesday. Tuesday, of course, is our days to dive down into the mire and the muck of what's going on in Alaskan politics. I mean, it's not really that mucky, but it is kind of interesting. It is the weekly top three, where Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets comes in to give us the rundown on the top three things that he thinks are important that we should be seeing and watching and paying attention to in state government. He's been doing this on the program for, I guess we're going on close to 10 years now, 9 years, 2014. This is yeah, so we're going on 9 years here with this right now. So we've been talking about this issue, what feels like forever, but it's important. This week's topics include how much are we actually going to spend this year, because the dollars are starting to add up. The dollars are starting to add up, and Brad Keithley is going to bring us some details on that. Also, the details on this new proposed House Joint Resolution and Constitutional Amendment on the Permanent Fund, which I'm going to give you some details on here in just a moment. And then finally, how the Willow decision could come at any time and what does it mean for us overall. So this is kind of the way, this is the direction that we're headed, and the things that we're going to talk about here on today's weekly top three, again with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Then in hour two, we'll get a chance to kind of recoup, discuss. I'll give you some of my final thoughts on Brad's talking points and anything else that comes up during the weekly top three. And then we'll get a chance to chat with Chris Story, the man from Homer, who comes in to give us give us our weekly positivity update. Yeah, it used to be Tammy Tuesday. I used to do a segment in Fairbanks when the show was only broadcasting in Fairbanks with Tammy Wilson that we called Tammy Tuesday. Can you not tell that I'm a fan of alliteration? How many times have I told you that? I'm a fan. I'm definitely a fan. All right. So today is the Tuesday and the weekly top three and the Chris Story PMA boost, plus anything else that I feel like stuffing into that big old enchilada. And we're ready to go. An Eskimo Libertarian is noticing that I'm wearing my new shirt, which is going to be available on my website. I'm doing a revamp of the website. I actually started this revamp here a couple months ago and got 96% of the website finished. And I've just been stuck on the last 4% of the website, trying to get the web store all put in there and everything else so you guys can get the t-shirts and the coffee mugs and everything else. It's on my list. It just has not been as high as a priority as it should have been. So I'm working on that. And, but yeah, we got some new shirts. We got the Just Say No to Government Dough t-shirts. We've got the Government Censorship t-shirts. We've got the 6 o'clock Club We've got just the plain old beard t-shirts where it's got my beard on it and, the whole thing, beard power. Anyway, so that is, that's the rundown for today. That's exactly what we're going to be facing off on. Now, tomorrow on the program, State Senator Mike Shower is supposed to be joining us, and we're hoping to hear back from Calvin Schrage. He sent me an email, as I said yesterday. I missed the email somehow the morning that he called in, and I asked him to email. He had already emailed me, and I hadn't realized that. So it happens. Sometimes I get a lot of email. I get a lot of emails. Sometimes I gotta swim through all that stuff, and I missed one. So we're hoping that Calvin Schrage will be joining us tomorrow morning in the 6 o'clock hour, then following up with Mike Shower. So it's the plan. It's a plan. It's a hope and a plan. That's what we're looking for. Okay, what else have we got here that I would like to talk about? First and foremost, the big discussion, the big talking point is I can't decide which one to talk about. There's a lot of them. There's several big talking points. I guess we could talk about the permanent fund restructure, which I know we're going to get into here with Brad in just a minute. There's a new proposed amendment. It's being put forward by Cliff Groh, who is the Anchorage Democrat, but he's also got some other lawmakers who have joined in on it with him. The KTUU articles quotes Jesse Sumner and talked about this. It is House Joint Resolution 9, which is a constitutional amendment that they hope will fully protect the Alaska Permanent Fund in the Constitution. This is an interesting amendment because it would not specifically fix or protect the permanent fund dividend. What it would do, it would take both parts of the permanent fund, which include the corpus of the fund, the main prime body of the fund, and the earnings reserve. So the earnings reserve and the principal. And it would create a single constitutionally protected account. Now, one thing this would do is that it would pretty much eliminate the statutory PFD, because the statutory PFD draws from the earnings reserve account. And if the earnings reserve account is no longer there and it's just a combination of it's the main account, that could, the way that I would read it now is that it would eliminate the statutory PFD as it's written right now. Groh points out, rightly so, that under current laws, lawmakers could spend the entire permanent fund's earnings, all the ERA, with a simple majority vote. And that's been part of the issue that we've had here on the program for a long time with what's going on in there. This amendment would combine those two accounts to create a single constitutionally protected account. It would restrict lawmakers from spending no more than 5% of the market value of the account as a whole using the POMV system. Groh said that when asked about whether or not this would raise or lower PFD checks, he says this is basically agnostic to that question. He said that he is personally in favor of enshrining the rights of the permanent fund dividend, the PFD, into the Constitution. But he said this would address a very different question, which is basically, shall the legislature be able to overspend or overdraw from the permanent fund? So this is an interesting piece, and I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet. I'm thinking, I don't know. I like where it's going in the protection of the overdraw, because that's part of the problem, is that I have a concern that the legislature, as it gets hungry and more hungry for monies down the road, that they very well could overdraw the earnings reserve, draw down into the corpus of the fund. I mean, it could be, it's problematic to say the least. At the same time, I think we miss an opportunity to address both issues at once. Now, maybe this is, maybe he doesn't want to split his efforts or whatever, and I can see that. But remember, this is the same Cliff Grow that was criticizing Will Stapp for not putting more issues of, when Will Stapp was talking about the spending cap and talking about it was part of the fiscal policy working group's plan, Cliff was also saying, well, you're not taking on all these other issues. And I don't think that the fiscal policy working group had a component in there that spoke specifically about protecting the permanent fund itself in a constitutional amendment. Maybe it did. I don't think it did. I don't recall it, that being part of it. But I think it's going to be interesting. The fact that they're quoting Jesse Sumner in here, and I'm assuming, well, I guess I shouldn't assume. I should not assume that for sure. I could tell you that let's see, who is Representative Groves, Jesse Sumner, Calvin Schreggy, Wright, Josephson, Garrick, Galvin, Armstrong, and Himshoot. Wow, that's a cast of characters. That is a cast of characters. I don't even know what to say to that. That is an interesting group of folks. I know Brad's going to be talking about this a little bit in the weekly top 3, so I won't get too far deep in the weeds on this, but this is an interesting development. What was the other thing that I did want? Oh, yeah. Gary Stevens is carrying on the good work of Senator Peter Micciche, seeking to impose the first ever statewide tax on vaping products. It would also raise the legal age for purchasing and selling, distributing those products to 21, aligning with federal law, instead of 19, as it is here in Alaska. They said it's needed to counter the trend of the rising e-cigarette use, vaping use around everything else. They talk about the recent report in Alaska that shows that tobacco use is way down, but that vaping has increased, a lot, nearly to offset it. Now, there's no discussion on the dangers of, they're treating as if the addiction to that nicotine from vaping, or that the danger of vaping is anywhere near the same as combustible tobacco or anything else, which it's an argument that we're not even making in this country now. They did in England, and they had they've significantly dropped their smoking in England because of it. Here's the thing that really gets my goat, though. The thing that gets my goat is Stephen's statement talking about the taxes. He said taxes are effective at reducing tobacco use by both discouraging youths to take up the habit and helping give adults incentives to quit. So again, he's admitting that it's behavior modification through taxation, which is not government's job. They're utilizing taxation as a weapon to modify behavior in people. That's offensive to me, quite honestly. Anytime a politician actually slows down for a minute and admits that that's the point, that's when I just go, that's not your job, man. People make decisions, good or bad. People make decisions. It is not up to you. And to utilize government as a weapon, to weaponize it, to basically try and mold behavior, that offends me. It really does. I mean, we can agree and disagree on many things, but the fact that they're basically trying to use taxation as a weapon for behavior modification, it just drives me crazy. Anyway, we got to go. We got to jump back into this here. Brad Keithley is going to be joining us in just a moment. the weekly top three. It is the Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more in just a moment and start off with Brad right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. How you guys doing? Brett, I've read that vaping is worse. Well, the entire Royal Academy of Medicine and blah, 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 the whole National Health Service would disagree with you in the Royal Cancer Society, but it doesn't matter. I think whether it was better or worse, it's really none of government's business, quite honestly. I'm going back up here. There's the EPA meetings at the Wood Center. The Ways and Means Committee has 2 PFD resolutions, HJR 7 and HJR 8. The POV draws access, allows access to the corpus. If HJR 9 passes, says Rob Myers, you can say goodbye to the dividend. That's that's how I read it. If it would successfully disconnect the people's share of natural resource wealth, says Chris over on Twitch. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to read through all these real quick before I jump over to Brad, who's in the waiting room here. Okay. I think that's Brian Ahok says. We want, yeah, a lot of them would go broke. Absolutely. Because they benefit greatly off that kind of stuff. All right. Let's jump over to where Brad is. Let's hang out with Brad, shall we? Before we have to get back to it. Let's do this. We're excited. So excited. Hello, Bradley. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Michael. How are you doing? Do we need to party here a little bit to get you up and going?
Yeah, we need a little pump up, hurrah. So yeah, we're all in. Here you are, the father of the Alaskan tax. That's what somebody said about you. Father of the pain tax, right?
Actually, that was Jay Hammond.
That's true. I mean, we're just anytime we've talked about this, we're basically quoting Hammond at this time, right?
Yeah, nothing I've argued hasn't come out of one of Hammond's books. So if you want to blame it on me, that's fine. But it goes right on back up the line to Hammond.
Yeah, to Hammond. All right.
Who's also, of course, the father of the PFD. So
right, exactly. Well, and I mean, I see all this stuff going on, and of course, this is the only bill that they write about. There's 3 other bills that deal with that are constitutional amendments with the PFD, the permanent fund, and the fund itself, and everything else. But this is the only one that they write about. It's just so the other 2 are not even mentioned in this article, and it kind of blows my mind that this is the kind of reporting we're getting on this. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but disappointed, I guess. I mean,
well, the reporting's reflecting the push, right? So Cliff got out there and has really been pushing his bill. got out there yesterday and has really been pushing the proposed constitutional amendment. I'm gonna try to put it in context with the other two, so we can understand what's going on here. But hopefully at the end of that conversation, it'll be clear to what I think, at least, and maybe clearer about what the landscape is for these three proposals.
Well, I say, look, is look at the co-sponsors of this bill and realize, oh, this thing is not, it's not friendly. We gotta jump back into it. Here we go. We'll start this off. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. That means we're ready to go. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, is our guest. It is the weekly. It is the weekly top three. Thank God I talk for a living. Weekly top three, and Brad joins us this morning to talk about those things. Brad, good morning, my friend. Are you ready to jump in with both feet?
Michael, I am. Hopefully I've put enough water in my mouth so that I can talk and.
Yeah, you know, it's not only the water, man. Is that supposed to be water? Because it smells a lot like. Anyway, let's talk here.
Oh, Terry's been messing with your drink selection.
Well, I had you turned me on to the wine smoothie in the morning. That's the thing. Not really. All right, the proposed spending in what we're looking at right now is starting to pile up a little bit, starting to add up. K-12, defined benefits, childcare, university. Oof, man, there's some dollars here in this big old pile. What are we talking about?
Well, one of the things that's been noticeably absent in the conversation, at least the conversation I've noticed, is somebody keeping a running tab on how much additional spend or how much total spending we're talking about in the FY24 budget. People will talk about, you know, we need to do K through 12. We need to do defined benefits. We need to do childcare. We need to do more spending for the university. They'll talk about those in discrete chunks, but they don't really total it up. So what I tried to do is prepare a spreadsheet, which is what I do when I try to understand things. What I tried to do was come at it a different way and look at the level of the PFD they're talking about, and then use that to back into what the spending level is that they're talking about, because most of these people are talking about leftover PFDs. So when you think about what PFD they're talking about, you can back calculate what spending level they're talking about, and it's pretty interesting. The baseline spending level, if we have no additional revenues, no PFD cuts, just run on traditional revenues. The baseline spending level is about $4.2 billion. That is based upon current futures markets, oil futures markets, and based upon the estimate of what the other tax and other fees and other revenues are going to be. We're at about $4.2 billion. The administration has proposed $4.9 billion, which is about a PFD cut of about 30%. If you look at it in terms of what's left over for the PFD if you spend this amount and have to take the deficit, the amount over traditional revenues, out of the PFD, what's left over for the PFD? And the administration has proposed spending of about $4.9 billion. That's the lowest end of the range that I'm going to talk about. That's the lowest end that anybody is talking about. Nobody is talking about the $4.2 billion, which is the traditional revenue level. Everybody's talking about something above that, and the administration's talking about $700 million above the 4.2 level. POMV 50/50. If you adopt a POMV 50/50 and the other 50% not used for the PFD was used for government revenues, That'd be about 4.96 billion. That's what we would be talking about in terms of spending levels. Ledge Finance, when they calculated the current policy, what they say is the current policy budget, that is continuing the policies of the last fiscal year, cuts and additions, they come up to about $4.97 billion, which is very close to a POMV 50-50. So if we stuck with that budget, we'd be at about a POMV 50-50. Ledge Finance also talks about a current law budget. The current law budget pays for everything provided by current law, interestingly enough, except for the PFD. So all of the school reimbursement, school construction reimbursement, all of the various programs that have statutory calculations to them. That's what the Ledge Finance current law budget is, and that's about $5.34 billion. So we're about 9% at that point over the administration. Then the next level up is the FY23 budget, and this is the budget that spent everything they possibly could. We didn't think they could ever spend any more than the FY23 budget, so I put the FY23 budget in there, and that's $5.68 billion. That would result in a PFD cut of about 60%. We'd have about a 40% PFD. And then and now we get into what people are talking about. People in the legislature are talking about in their various current proposals. Senator Stedman's talked about a $1,300 PFD. So when you back calculate that into what that means in terms of spending, the Senate majority is talking about a spending level of $5.81 billion. If you add all of their, if you add their K through 12 proposal, their defined benefits proposal, childcare, all the other stuff, we're talking about a spending level of $5.81 billion. That's 19%, nearly 20% above what the administration's proposed. And that's more than the FY23 budget. So we're breaking through, what we said we could never spend more than. We'd never be able to spend more than the FY23 budget. We're already breaking through that. POMV's 2575, which a lot of people talk about as a way of setting the ratio between the PFD and revenues available for government. 25% would go to.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
25% would go to government, or 25% would go to the PFD. 75% to government. That's a spending level of $5.84 billion. And then you get to Zach Fields' $1,000 PFD. What's left over after $1,000 PFD? $6 billion for government, 23% higher than what the administration's proposed. There's one other thing on that sheet I want to mention, Michael, before we start talking about, and that is the far right side, the tax calculation, and this isn't proposing a tax, not proposing a tax. This is simply analyzing how much of the funds are being converted in terms of PFD cuts. How much of the funds that otherwise should go to the private sector are being converted over to government. And those numbers are pretty astounding. We're talking about tax rates, and again, tax in the sense that we're cutting the PFD, we're moving that money out of the private sector over to the government sector. And I've calculated these on the basis of Alaska adjusted gross income, which is the combined income of all Alaska families. The administration's proposing, even the administration's proposing a tax on the Alaska economy in the sense of moving money out of the PFD over to the government sector of 2.5% of AGI of the revenues, gross revenues of Alaska family, gross income of Alaska families. The FY23 budget would be 5.3%. And Fields, by the time you get up to Fields' proposal would be a tax level on Alaska families' income of 6.5%. We're talking about some huge tax burdens that are being tucked away, hidden by doing them as PFD cuts.
And you went into this, backing into this, saying, well, if they keep talking about these leftover PFDs, then what money is left on the table? And basically that's what you're doing here, showing that they could spend up to $6 billion on government, still give us $1,000 PFD, pat us on the head, tell us we're doing a good job, and still be spending more than they ever have before, all the while still owing money to the constitutional budget reserve and everything else. And instead of being frugal with that, they're just basically spending every nickel that they can find and still trying to keep us quiet on the PFD.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what Zach's doing is saying, oh, well, $1,000 PFD, you should be happy with that. I'll take the rest. Government will take the rest of that. And that adds up to, $6 billion that they've got to spend. Stedman, the $1,300 PFD. Stedman said we could do all this and still have a $1,300 PFD, as if that's a good thing compared to the statutory PFD this year of $3,600. But Stedman said we could do all this and still have a $1,300 PFD. Well, that adds up to shifting to government $5.8 billion more than the government spent in FY23 after all the bells and whistles were accounted for. So, I mean, they're talking about some huge shifts, and they're hiding it. The thing that I continually try to find ways to bring out is they're hiding it in terms of PFD cuts. It's a tax rate. Stedman's is a tax rate of 5.8% on Alaska family income. 5.8% average tax rate across the board. We're not talking about top 20%. We're not talking about bottom 20%. We're talking about the average rate across the board. 5.8% tax rate on Alaska family income. That's what he's taking out of Alaska families and putting by cutting the PFD, taking out of Alaska families and putting it into government. That's a huge tax rate. And for an average tax rate across all income brackets, that's a huge tax rate. Probably one of the highest in the nation. But we hide it. They try to hide it by calling it a PFD cut instead of a tax. And instead of calculating it as what are you taking out of the income of Alaska families, they calculate it as, well, how much of the PFD do you get? How much PFD do you get? How much, you're so lucky to get this $1,300.
Right. Well, and of course they look us in the eye and say, well, Alaska doesn't have any taxes, so you guys should just be happy with what we're doing. Again, setting us up not only gaslighting us on the whole fact that the PFD cut is a tax, but also setting us up for the future argument, which is, well, you guys just don't pay your fair share, so we need more taxes in the long run anyway. $6 billion. I mean, that's a huge, huge number comparatively. I remember when 2014, when you and I first started talking about this, we were looking for them to try and guarantee that they were going to spend no more than $4.1 billion just to stay within that, so they didn't mess things up. And of course,
yeah, Michael, you just froze on me, so I'm not sure if I've frozen on my end too, or
on this new bill, this new HJR bill, which is the House Joint Resolution bill from Cliff Grow. Give us the tease on this, and we'll come back to it here.
Well, Cliff Grove's proposed this new constitutional amendment, got a lot of press yesterday, but we need to understand it in the context of what else is going on in Ways and Means. That bill's been referred to Ways and Means. We need to understand it in the context of what's going on, what else is going on in Ways and Means. And when you understand in that context, the co-sponsorship by Jesse Sumner and Stanley Wright, two Republicans, becomes very curious. I'm not quite sure what they're up to, but we'll talk about that after the break.
Brad Keithley is our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. The weekly top three. We got number one out of the way. Let's get to number two. We'll do it right after this. You're home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. The Michael Duke Show. Broadcasting live across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Back with more right after this.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, our guest here on the program. I just broke something. Oh, there we go. All right, Brad. This is about the amount of money we're talking about here is so mind-boggling, and the fact that these legislators are just like, "Yep, we need to spend this. We need to spend it. We're spending more than we've ever spent before, but we still need to spend it, and you guys can just, be happy that we threw you the $1,000 bone, right?"
That's exactly how they're trying to sell it. I mean, Zach Fields has proposed this $1,000 PFD. It's one of the bills that's in Ways and Means now, and he does this calculation of, average PFDs over time. Zach Fields, who is the world's biggest cheerleader for you have to inflation adjust everything, does this calculation without inflation adjusting the PFD. Does this non-inflation adjusted calculation of the PFD. But it comes out to about $1,000. And Zach Field says, you ought to be happy with $1,000. That's the average that, all Alaska families have received over time. Without discussing, of course, how much is being diverted to government, how much of the PFD is being taxed and diverted to government as a result of his proposal. I mean, they've broken into the piggy bank, Michael. They've broken into with Walker's, veto and the legislature's follow up ad hoc decisions on the PFD. They've broken into the piggy bank of the PFD, and just like what we saw with the SBR and the CBR, and now with the PFD, it's just going down and down and down and down and down, because each year comes up with a new justification of, oh, well, we got to use the money for this, or we got to use the money for that, or we got to use the money for everything. And they're doing it under the cover of PFD cuts. Instead of being honest and talking about how much they're taxing Alaska families, how much of Alaska families' income they're taking out of Alaska families' pockets and diverting it over to government, instead of being honest about that, they're trying to cover it by just talking about the resulting PFD amount and how lucky we are that we ought to be, how thankful we are that we should be, that we're receiving that amount.
And I guess that's what boggles my mind. I mean, do they, because I don't think that anybody is, maybe it's my naivete. I just don't like to think that anybody is like, twirling their mustache evilly in the background and doing this. They truly think that this is the best thing for Alaskans, that for all this government spend to be there, for government to take care of everything. I mean, I'm trying to history shows that that's not the best road to tread. And yet these people continue to just fly against that and act like this is the best thing going.
Well, Rob Myers has really done some good thinking on this, and it's that the biggest concentrated pot of money is flowing through government's hands, right? I mean, the PFD, unfortunately, as opposed to the normal trust fund distribution going directly to the trust fund recipients, the PFD flows through government's hands, and everybody goes, well, I got this pet project, and look, government's always paid for it in the past. I mean, we've built projects, we've built roads, we've done programs because we always had this oil money in the past. I know oil money's going down, but I still want all my pet projects, right? I mean, it's coming from constituents to a degree. I still want all my pet projects, and the other projects are bad, but my project's really good. And by the time you add all that up, it takes more money. And since oil is no longer providing that money, where are you going to go for it? And, in the 2010s, we went to the savings accounts to continue,
right.
Laissez bon temps rouler, keep the good times going. And now in the 2020s, we've run through the savings accounts. Where are we going to go now? And because of that one little thing, because of the fact that PFD goes through government's fingers on its way to the people. Yep, we're going to snap that, and we're going to tell you it's good for you.
right, and you're going to like it, and then you're going to be satisfied with what we give you, kind of thing.
And aren't you lucky? We still let some of it trickle down. We won't for long. We can't keep this going. We can't keep this going forever. Just like we finally ran through the SBR and ran through the CBR, we're going to finally run through the PFD. But while we're going, you ought to be lucky that we're letting any of it trickle through, go on through our fingers and get down into your pockets.
Chris, I think summates it well. If looting the PFD is bad for the economy, the two possible motivations are evil and stupid. Got to be one or the other, or both. And maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know. I think the greed and evil can be synonymous at this point. They just feel like they know better than us.
Well, they know better than us, but they would say with some justification that their constituents are still demanding it. Trained by the whole era of we got so much money we don't know what to do with it. Let's create this program, that program, that. Trained by that era and continued in the 20 teens by draining down the savings accounts. Constituents go, I need something, so let's go to government to get it.
Well, like Rob said yesterday or Monday, he's still got constituents from his district walking in asking for money. It's amazing. Here we go, the Michael Duke Show.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Brad Keithley, our guest here on the Michael Duke Show. We're continuing with the weekly top 3 into number 2, which is the new HJR House Joint Resolution constitutional amendment put forward by Cliff Grow and company to roll the ERA and the corpus into one fund and then limit the draw on this. My one drawback that I see on this is that if they do that, they've immediately killed the statutory PFD because there's no longer an earnings reserve account to draw from for the formula to be factored on. But I think there's some other issues too. Brad, what do you see when you look at this?
Well, we got to put this in context. There's on March 1st, House Ways and Means introduced 2 committee bills dealing with the PFD. One is HJR 7, which constitutionalizes the PFD at, I believe, current statutory levels, and simply adds another provision to the permanent fund amendment to the Constitution to say, and we constitutionalize the PFD. This is how it should be calculated. Oh no, that amendment simply says it'll be done according to statute. So whatever the statute says is incorporated into the Constitution, and that's how we're going to deal with it. That's HJR 7. HJR 8, also introduced on the same day, on March 1st, is sort of an alternative proposal, as I understand it, which is we're going to constitutionalize both the permanent fund, sort of in the same way HJR 9 does, sort of in the same way Cliff Grow proposes. We're going to constitutionalize the permanent fund and protect the permanent fund and only draw 5%, I believe is the amount in that constitutional amendment, only draw 5% into the earnings reserve. But at the same time, it also constitutionalizes the PFD at the higher, if I recall correctly, at the higher of either the current statutory calculation or POMV 50/50, and says we're only going to draw 5%. We're going to constitutionalize the PFD at that amount, and then what's left over from the constitutionalized POMV draw, what's left over will go to government. So those 2 bills, those 2 proposed constitutional amendments, were submitted as committee proposals on March 1st. Now comes Cliff Grow's proposed amendment in that context of those 2 bills already laying there. And what Cliff is saying is, rather than the first bill, the first committee bill, which would constitutionalize the PFD, or the second committee bill, which would do what Cliff wants to do, but also add in constitutionalizing the PFD, his third, Cliff's bill, HJR 9, constitutionalizes only the permanent fund and doesn't say anything about the PFD. So in the context, what's going on is the first 2 bills are protecting the first bill protects the PFD. The second bill protects the POMV draw, constitutionalizes the POMV draw, and protects the PFD. And now Cliff's third bill only protects the POMV. In that context, it's clear that Cliff's bill is removing the protections for the PFD and putting the PFD at risk. Here's the interesting thing. In that context, the third bill, Cliff's bill, gets 2 Republican co-sponsors, Jesse Sumner and Stanley Wright. Rather than adopt or support one of the 2 committee bills, one of the proposed 2 committee amendments, they go along with Cliff and a number of other Democrats, a number of other in the minority, and agree to co-sponsor a bill that's only protecting the PFD or only protecting the POMV, not protecting the PFD. And I find that really, really interesting. I truly wonder what's in Jesse and Stanley's minds when they did that, because it's clear in that context that they're not proposing to protect the PFD in any way, shape, or form. So I'm troubled by Cliff's bill in that context. I'm troubled by Cliff's bill. I'm especially troubled by the fact that it drew 2 Republican co-sponsors.
One of the things that Donna points out in the chat room as well is that HJR 7 bypasses the appropriation process for the PFD as well. It says the state shall pay the PFD, which is what they did for years. It was basically just a transfer. It didn't even go through the appropriations process, and the legislature really wasn't even involved, which kind of goes back to where we were before. So yeah, very troubling that you've got protect the PFD, protect the POMV and the PFD, and then just protect the POMV. And of course, that's the only one that really gets any press, is the one from the Democrats that's protect the POMV, protect the government spend, essentially at the cost of everything else.
Well, I think there's a couple of things going on with why it got publicity. I think Cliff pushed it, and he was able to push it because he got Jesse and Stanley and Stanley's support for it. So he was able to sell it as a bipartisan proposal to protect the permanent fund, and then he pushed it out to, admittedly probably what's a very receptive audience in the press. But I don't think the majority. I don't think the committee or the majority did the same press push with the first 2 bills. But just looking through it and looking at the context in which Cliff's bill is proposed, in the context of the other 2 bills that are already sitting on Ways and Means' desk, it's just, clearly we have a divide going on. Clearly we have those who want to protect the PFD with HJR 7. Clearly those who want to protect the PFD and the POMV, what frankly is more in line with the Fiscal Policy Working Group proposal in HJR 8. And then you have the other extreme going out the other extreme with protect the POMV only. But to have Jesse and to have Sumner and Wright on that last bill, protect the POMV only, is just a troubling development.
What do you think it spells for the legislature in that regard? What do you think it spells for the majority and the minority in that? What do you say?
Well, I think what should come through Ways and Means, if you look at the membership of Ways and Means, what should come on through Ways and Means is HJR 8, which is to protect the POMV, which is one tenet of the Fiscal Policy Working Group, and constitutionalize protect the permanent fund, which is one tenet of the working group, and then constitutionalize the PFD, which is another tenet of the working group, and HJR 9. Just to protect the permanent fund only or protect the POMV only, I think should go by the wayside. But there's some signal going on here with Jesse and Stanley signing on to Cliff's bill, and it's not a good signal. And I'm not quite sure what that means down the road. I think the committee's doing a good job sort of bringing everything together, developing the context, putting bills out there that they can talk about, that achieve the Fiscal Policy Working Group's objectives, building up the record for that, and then trying to push it on as a package, hopefully not anything breaking off into separate pieces. I think they're doing a good job at that. But Cliff's bill is just, if it weren't for Jesse and Stanley co-sponsoring, Cliff's bill would be just another bill, sort of like Zach Field's $1,000 PFD. Yeah. We understand you're trying to get it, but but with Jesse and Stanley on board, there's something else going on.
Brad Keithley, number 2 now pretty much finalized. We've got 3 minutes here. Can you give us number 3? Hit us with number 3 on the way in.
Yep. So a lot of press about Willow, the administration's Willow decision. Rob Myers told me last night that the word is that the Biden administration's decision on Willow is going to come out tomorrow. There's a lot riding on the Willow decision, not from the standpoint of state fiscal. We talked about this before. for various reasons, because it's on federal lands, not state lands, because the tax code, the production tax code allows deferment of taxes. Well, actually a holiday for taxes for several years from new developments. Willow doesn't mean much in the near or even the intermediate term from the state fiscal standpoint, but from a state economy standpoint, from jobs, from construction activity, from contracts being let, from everything from food services all the way up to construction of ice roads and construction of pads and everything else. It means a lot to the overall Alaska economy. So we're going to find out this week, maybe tomorrow, very soon, what the Biden administration is going to do on this. And frankly, I still expect the Biden administration to approve what the BLM proposed, which is the 3-pad alternative. What Conoco has said is the minimum that it's going to take for the project to be economic. I still anticipate the Biden administration approving that, frankly, because of Lisa. They need Lisa in the Senate. And I think she's made very clear that her support of the Biden administration hinges on their approval of the 3-pad alternative. So I still expect them to do that. But, there's a lot of pushback on it, a lot of environmental community pushing back, trying to kill the whole thing with either, conditioning it on 2 pads or denying it altogether like they have Pebble. So we'll see this week, but big deal for the Alaska economy. There's going to be a lot of press about it, but keep in mind, it's big for the Alaska economy. It's not big for Alaska's fiscal situation. It is not a cure in any way, shape, or form.
Right, because again, for the economy, because it creates jobs and there's add-on industries and everything else, not for the fiscal picture of the state itself, because the state is only slated to make like $5 billion over the course of the life of the whole thing, which is, in the scheme of things, is not a lot of money when we're spending $5 or $6 billion a year. It's not a lot of money in the long run.
Right, and that's pushed back because of the way that the tax code works. That's pushed back into the later years in any event. So not much money to the state, and it's not coming anytime soon.
You always bring the best news, Brad. You always bring the good stuff. It's interesting to watch, to see how these things are laying out. These HJR, the resolutions, the 3 resolutions, I think are going to be some things to watch. They're all part of this plan for the Fiscal Policy Working Group, which we'd like to see come together as a whole thing, but we'll keep the analysis rolling on that. Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you, Brad, for coming on board.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
Folks, we got more coming up. Hour 2 is dead ahead. You're home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return with more right after this. I was just looking back during our discussion on the different joint resolutions. Kevin says that HJR 7 is essentially what was proposed by the Fiscal Policy Working Group. You say that you like 8 more than 7, specifically because why? Because it protects the overdraw,
right,
of the POMV. Is that what your take is?
Right. And there was parts of, I mean, Kevin would know better than I would, but I think there were parts of that in the Fiscal Policy Working Group as well. Certainly there's a big chunk of the legislature that is concerned about that as well. In terms of putting together a package that tries to compromise on everything, I think that's a useful part of it. I mean, basically overdraws are a tax on future generations, right? I mean, it's making this, it's sort of like what we did with savings during the 2010s. We made this generation better by our life easier by pulling down the SBR and the CBR. So we didn't have to use any of our funds to pay for it. We were just using accumulated savings funds from the past. But it's the future generations who won't have a CBR of their own when they hit their fiscal challenges that are going to pay for it. So it's essentially, it's an intergenerational tax. Same thing's true from drawing down, taking more than the 5%, using 5% as a proxy for what the overall returns are over time, real returns. It's essentially a tax on future generations. So if we're going to stop taxes, unnecessary, undisclosed, secret taxes, then we need to both protect the current PFD and we need to protect raids on future generations by overdrawing the permanent fund.
I think that it's interesting, that these folks continue to try and find ways when it's all said and done to basically pay lip service. I mean, Grow is quoted in the article from KTUU as saying, well, he supports the permanent fund and he'd like to see it enshrined. But of course, I mean, there's already a bill to do what he wants to do and protect the permanent fund, but he just put one in to protect the POMV, which again looks right back at the whole protecting government spend. I mean, you're right. I find the motivations of Wright and Sumner at this point to be very opaque. I can't figure out exactly why they wouldn't support the two bills that are already out there. Kevin says we need both 7 and 8 to be passed to do it. I mean, there's already two bills in there. Why wouldn't you support those? I can't reason as to why they would want to do that other than to protect government spend, which seems kind of contrary to their constituency and to the mission statement.
Well, protect government spend and protect the top 20%. I mean, Jesse, I've always, it's sort of like Will Stapp, right? I mean, Jesse talks a good game, but when you sort of parse through what his words are, it's always about protecting the top 20%. Use the PFD if we have to. PFD is nice, but use it if we have to. Don't tax Alaskans without recognizing the PFD as a tax. And Cliff's bill, could be viewed by some as a protect the top 20% bill, because it's going to protect the permanent fund corpus. It's going to protect it out into the future, let it build up over time, and allow all the earnings to be used for government, so that you don't have to tax the top 20% to get any money in there for government. And so, viewed from that angle, I can figure out what's going through Jesse's mind. Stanley, I have no idea what's going through his mind. I mean, I've understood Stanley to be more in line with Republican thinking that we've seen in the majority about the importance of the PFD. But maybe I've misunderstood what Stanley's doing.
What are you watching this week, Brad? We got about 2 minutes here. What are you watching this week to kind of keep your eye on, so to speak?
Well, Willow certainly will be a big deal from the standpoint of the economy. The build up to next Monday's Ways and Means Committee meeting is going to be interesting. Next on the schedule, if I understand it, for Ways and Means next Monday is public testimony on on HJR 7 and HJR 8. And hopefully there will be a lot of support for those two, not only from other legislators, but from the public as well, and sort of how that builds up during the week to next Monday evening's hearing is going to be, if I've got the dates right, somehow correct me if I'm wrong, how that sort of builds up to next to the next Ways and Means Committee hearing is going to be interesting as well.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. You can follow him on Facebook, where he posts up his weekly chart of the week and everything else. Plus, he's got a public testimony is on Saturday as well, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on that.
All right, so I'll be focused on public testimony on Saturday as opposed to next Monday.
Yeah, but you can follow Brad along on Facebook, where he posts his chart of the week and everything else. He's also got his weekly column in the Alaska Landmine. And you can argue with him on Twitter too. I'm sure he loves that. That's fun stuff. Brad Keithley, thanks so much for coming on board and joining us this week. I appreciate you being part of it.
Michael, as always, thanks for having me.
All right, folks, we're going to let me dive in here and be the one and only here. Brad Keithley, thank you so much. We're coming up into it. Hour 2 of the broadcast. I'm curious. I mean, I don't know why Jesse and Stanley Wright would want to support this bill when two other bills are already waiting in the wings, and this one obviously is an attempt to break out and basically wreck the PFD. I don't know why they would be down with this. But I guess we'll talk about that here in the next segment. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Here we go.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. It is the Michael Duke Show. Good morning. Welcome to hour 2 of the big radio broadcast. We just finished up with a discussion with Brad Keithley from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets in the weekly top 3. Of the 2 topics that he covered today, the first one the first topic, which was the amount that is actually being spent and the deliverables. Basically when people like Zach Fields or Bert Stedman are wandering around saying, well, you can have $1,000 PFD or you could have a $1,300 PFD. They never then turn around and tell you exactly what that means for them, which is it backfills and leaves them a ton of money to spend on all the projects they want. They want a brand new, defined benefits bill, or they want a new BSA, or they want state subsidized or state run childcare. They want all these different things in there. And it's a tremendous amount of money. Going back to Brad's chart here that he had up this morning, taking a look at this and realizing that, again, fiscal year 23, which is what we're in right now, had the largest state budget ever, $5.68 billion. And yet, when you look at the amount of money that would be spent under a Fields plan of $1,000 PFD or a Stedman plan of a $1,300 PFD, you realize that both of those spend between $250 and $500 million more. Fields plan leaves unrestricted general fund spending in the $6 billion range. I mean, the government growth is out of control. Government growth is out of control. And part of it is just because of you and me. Now, maybe not specifically you and me, because if you're probably listening to this program, you are probably a fan of a lower, more sustainable budget, a smaller, more limited government. That's probably where you fall on the political or philosophical spectrum. But, we heard from Rob Myers on yesterday was Monday. We heard from Rob Myers yesterday that he still has constituents who are reaching out to him, emails, phone calls, people showing up at town halls, still asking for more government spending in their districts. And this is the North Pole, the district that Rob represents, is probably one of the more conservative districts in the entire state. Yet they're still going hat in hand to him. And he again, this is not just a, 50-50 thing, basically, and Rob's in the chat room right now. He can lay it out to me. But what I took away from that was that it was more like a 4 or 5 to 1 of 4 or 5 people coming in asking for money versus people asking him to cut. out of one of the most conservative districts in the state. That's discouraging, I guess is the word I want to use. Discouraging. And the spending is just a symptom of the larger disease. Government is out of control in every aspect. Brian just said that in the chat room, and I agree with that. They, gotten into every aspect of our lives, and they continue to pick away at it. And if they can't do anything else, at least they raise funds out of it. That was the news story that just came out with Senator Gary Stevens, who's now putting forward a new vaping bill because, and he admits right down in the middle of the piece that this is all about behavior modification. That they want to control and direct the way that you act. Now, I'm not saying that people should have the choice, even if the choices that they make are self-destructive. That is a choice, and that is on people, whether they want to smoke or drink or do drugs or whatever it is, or overspend and live on credit or whatever, however you want to paint a bad picture for things that are self-destructive for people. They should have the right. I mean, they should have the right to make their own choices in that case, instead of having government come in and say, well, we're using taxes as a behavior modification tool. We want people not to do the things that they're going to do. It's like saying, well, these kids and the smoking and the, look, when I was growing up in high school, there were kids out behind the school who were smoking lots of different things, right? It happened. People are going to do bad things, especially the youth. I mean, they're going to do things that are bad for them because, for whatever reason, rebel with a cause, or just because they're antisocial or whatever, or they're experimenting, but adults need to have those choices too. They need to be able to make their own choices and live with the consequences of those choices. But instead, we've got a bunch of do-gooders in the legislature and in the government as a whole who think that somehow they know better than you how you should live your life. At every level. And whether that's controlling your money, whether that's modifying your behavior, whether that's forcing you to do the things that they think are right and moral. And again, whether that's having to accept the fact that, what was the headline? Having to accept the fact that now the Alaska, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the headline. The Alaska, the power lifters. Where is the headline? Did it disappear? Power lifters. Oh, I know this is the most read. Power lifters in Alaska are now being forced. Anchorage-based USA Powerlifting ordered to allow trans women to compete in Minnesota meets. What is it that government is involved in every aspect of our life now, and we've almost become inured to it instead of outraged. We've become inured to it, and we're just kind of like, well, that's just how it is, and so might as well get mine while we're at it, right? Might as well get some of mine done while we're at it. I don't understand. I don't understand how this is where we're at. And now we've got, again, these bills that are coming out to change and to protect the government spend at all cost. And that's what HJR 9 is. It's a protection of the government spend at all costs. No matter what's going on, that's what's going on. The rookie and whether or not Cliff Grow is whether or not Cliff Grow is just really good at convincing people. Maybe Jesse and Stanley, were rookered and schnookered. We saw that happen earlier, right, from Josephson when he rolled the Republican chair of the committee that he was in with the defined benefits plan. He kind of hoodwinked the chair of that committee to get it rolled on through. Whether Grow is just really good at talking people into things or selling them a bill of goods or not, this is the one that's getting all the press. You know, what we need to be talking about, quite honestly, is the other two amendments, HJR 7 and HJR 8, which would protect the permanent fund and protect the corpus and the against the overdraw of the fund and the ERA. But again, they've got the friendly ear of the news. I mean, nowhere in any of these articles does the wait a second. Let me make sure I'm not misspeaking here. But nowhere that I saw in the articles did the articles mention that about the other two proposed HJRs, House Joint Resolutions. All they did is talk about Cliff Grows, not about the two that are sitting in committee. You know, not that they're ready to go. They've got a very friendly ear when it comes to the news media and everything else. And it's very frustrating to watch because it seems like that's the only conversations are being had about what they want to have conversations about. And the average person is not diving down into these things to the depths that we are. Right? I mean, you guys you're super voters, right? You're informed. You've taken a crack at it. You're doing all these things. The average person is just reading the headlines and maybe the subheading underneath of it, and that's it. They're not really getting down into the meat and potatoes of it. They don't understand the unintended consequences of what they're voting on or reading a lot of the time because they're busy. They just, it's not, maybe politics is not their thing. They don't care. They trust their representatives. I mean, whether that's good or bad or not, I mean, but that's the direction that we're going right now. I can't fathom why Jesse Sumner and Stanley Wright would sign on to this bill. Maybe they got bamboozled. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they're showing their true colors. I don't know. But why aren't we talking about these other two bills as well? In all fairness, if we've got 3 constitutional amendments, why aren't we talking about all 3? Especially since the other 2 are coming out of a committee. They are being sponsored. They're committee sponsored. They can't have co-sponsors on committee bills. But why are we not talking about those 2 as well? Well, because they don't have the friendly ear of the legislature, apparently, or the friendly ear of the news media, apparently. That's where we're at right now. It's frustrating. It's very frustrating to watch this kind of stuff come down. All right. We've got to take a break. We got to come back. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. Chris Story will be our guest up next for our weekly PMA uplift, our boost, our positivity boost. The man from Homer comes in to join us right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Chris Story, the obnoxiously positive and sometimes hilarious man from Homer, joins us every week to talk about pottery, positivity, and how not to become a nihilist. We're looking at you, Eric. It's the Michael Dukes Show.
Your mental suppository. The Michael Dukes Show.
Okay. All right. What else we got here? Bethel's 13% sin tax on cigarettes doesn't do anything to cut underage smoking. It just fills a $1.5 million loss on a swimming pool. Yeah, that's good. All taxes are behavior modification, says Donna. Tax income and your taxing production. Income taxes are designed to modify behavior and reduce production. I guess you're right in that regard, Donna. I would say that what really bothers me is when they blatantly say the quiet part out loud and say, we're trying to modify your behavior. At least, because the golden lining, is that they don't say that on income taxes, but boy, do they say it when they're talking about sin taxes and things like that. Rob says, when I was talking about his district, he says, I have the second most conservative Senate district in the state. And they're still walking in with their hands out. What is it, Rob? 4-1? 5-1? People asking for more money from the state? Is it 4-1 versus people who are asking you to cut? 50-1. Sorry, I scrolled upwards. 50-1. Until yesterday, after he mentioned it on the show, and now people are getting their message out. I mean, I think, quite honestly, we're tired. I mean, I know that I'm tired of saying the same things over and over again and having absolutely no one listen. But, I mean, there we are. It's crazy. Let's see. If overspending is the problem, then wouldn't spending cuts make sense as the best solution? I would agree with you. But as Rob just pointed out, that's not what the constituencies are asking for. Oh, it's just frustrating. Kevin McCabe says he's never had anyone in his office asking for cuts. Well, damn, son. Also one of the most conservative districts in the state. Never had anybody. I'm asking for cuts, Kevin. I'm not in your office, but I'm asking for cuts. Does that count? Just scrolling down here, One World Alliance. Bill asked the question about what does Alaska Airlines mean by proud member of the One World Alliance? Isn't that an alliance of airlines? Isn't that what it is? But, I mean, you know. Stedman manages the states like he manages roads. Caitlin Road is complete debacle. Be more strident, says Robbie. That's her answer. Be more strident. I mean, yeah. When I get home, Sumner and Wright are going to be getting an earful from me, says Terry. Yeah, I would. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I'm looking at all these comments here and interesting. I want cuts along with Michael, Kevin. Does that count? Linda says, I want cuts as well. So I guess you've got two people now asking for cuts who are in your district, Kevin. I mean, we're just asking for a friend. Can you cut? We don't want to see it. All right, Chris Story, the man from Homer. Hello, my friend. How are you? Chris, are you with us? Okay. Well, that's disappointing. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear.
All right. Hold the line. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like it, share, like it, share, like it, follow. Let's get to it. Here we go. Okay. Well, hi, how are you? Welcome back to the program. It is Tuesday, and we're in hour 2 of the program, and that means we get a chance to talk with our positivity guru. That's what he is. He's a guru of positivity. Chris Story joins us from all the way down at the top of the world in Homer. Can you hear me, my friend? Are you with me this morning? And that says no. Well, that's disappointing. Chris, Chris, hold on. Let me call you back. Let me call you back in just a second, my friend. I'm having a problem with my phone. Let's see if we can get Chris back on the. Let's see if we can get Chris back on the line here and get him squared away. Let's try this one more time, and we'll see if we can get. Hey, there we go. Now we can hear him.
Good morning, Michael.
Hello, my friend. I don't know why, but when you call me, it doesn't work. When I call you, it works. It's weird. But
well, let's make a program note for the future.
Yeah, program note. I call you. How about that? That seems to work better.
Let's do lunch.
Hey,
let's do lunch. So I'll call my people.
I'll have my people call my people to then call your people. I've got all those people. All right, my friend.
You are.
I'm super important. You didn't know that I'm super important? I mean,
I said impotent.
Oh, okay. Yeah. You didn't know that I was wait a minute. All right. Chris Story joining us this morning to talk about positivity, pottery, how not to become a nihilist. I mean, it's all these things. These are important lessons that we need to learn. What's up, my friend? How are you doing?
Doing great. I read a study, and I said, as soon as I saw the study, I said, I've got to bring this to Michael. And I basically want to talk to you about nice guys finish last and other lies.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one coming. Okay, so nice guys finish last and other lies. Like Chris Story is ultimately handsome. But I mean, I'm with you. Okay, so go ahead and slap me with it, baby. Hit me with your whole thing here. What do you got going on?
It's funny because after that comment, I really do want to hit you. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah.
Well, no, there's a new study out, and I dug into the metrics a little bit of how they arrived at this conclusion. I'll spare you those details and just say, suffice it to say, they interviewed, they talked to, they studied a lot of people, thousands of people. One study was over 6,000, another study was several thousand, and this was across a couple different countries. So it was broad, and it came to a very broad and I think negligible and arguably provably false conclusion, which is to say that nice people don't acquire wealth. Nice people aren't good with money. Kind people, they went so far as to say kind people aren't good with money. And this is such bunk and just a perpetuation, I think, of this misnomer about what is wealth creation, what does it mean to create wealth, and who are the wealthy. So I think I can prove that it's bunk in 2 points quickly. First, the wealthiest people on the planet are the people that solve more problems for other people than anyone else. They don't abscond with money. Look at the monarchy of the United Kingdom. They're not wealthy. I mean, truly, if you compare them to any of the tech billionaires or the people that are actually solving problems, the royal family is actually pretty poor, and they're they're completely dependent upon the largesse of the people, of which they're stealing the money to continue the ritual that is the monarchy. Fine, that's their choice, that's England's choice. But the idea that the wealthy people among us are solving problems on a daily basis, I think needs to be put forefront in our minds, that anybody who solves a problem can achieve wealth if they wish to. Well, and the second thing I would say,
wait, before you go to the second thing, because I think that cuts against the narrative, man. The narrative is that rich people are evil. They're takers, right? They never talk about the solutions that these people that have made a lot of money, finding a need, filling a need, solving a problem for people. I mean, it doesn't match the evil mustache twirling multi-whatever gazillionaire that you see on TV that has evil plans to take over the world or oppress the slums or do whatever. not the fact that the guy, bought an apartment complex to try and provide housing for people and make money, both at the same time. No, he's an evil landlord. He's an evil oppressor. He's the evil. He's the evil billionaire or millionaire or corporatist or capitalist. It just doesn't fit the narrative. That's why you're seeing that kind of nice guys don't make it. You're a nice guy if you're poor. No, that's not necessarily true. I've met nice guys who are poor. I've met nice guys who are very, very wealthy. And it's just like anything else. There are different people in every class, every division, every tax bracket. It is bunk.
I agree. And the study really dialed in on the idea that if you're have a kind personality, that's an indicator that you do not value money. In fact, they went further to say that these folk value friendship over money. And that's to my second point to bunk the study, is that the wealthy, truly the wealthiest among us, value relationships and understand that they cannot do it alone. They understand the power of delegation. They understand the power in job creation and wealth creation through A, solving problems, and B, having real and sincere relationships, not the users among us that are the scourge of society that will use you and then wring you out and leave you. Those aren't truly the wealthy people. So the study suggests that the kind or agreeable personality types aren't good at saving money. And I would point to something that Jordan Peterson said in several of the debates that he's had, and one, that agreeable people don't often value themselves and or their worth such that they'll go defend it. More agreeable you are at work, the less likely you are to ask for a raise or promotion. And so there's some maybe corollary to being less agreeable, but it has nothing to do with your personality as far as kindness or the fact that you value friends over money. Those seem to me excuses, and I think a distortion of the reality.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between being assertive and being an ass, right? I mean, that's the thing.
I mean, that's the essence of the Michael Duke Show.
Exactly. I mean, there's a difference. They both have the ASS in it, but they mean totally different things. You can be assertive and still be a kind person. You can know your value or know the value of people around you and advocate for yourself and advocate for others. That doesn't mean you're not a kind person. And this is part of that. I mean, there's a whole hoopla built up about the virtue signaling of I am such a virtuous person because I am poor or because I am kinder than I am a thing. And I can I mean, yes, this drives me crazy. Holy cow.
And the idea that there's a correlation between able to save and wealth, I think, is another myth I'd like to debunk, is that you cannot save your way to a fortune. You cannot save your way to wealth. You invest your way to wealth. Once you've saved enough money beyond the immediate needs and your initial capital to start a business or an investment or something and a rainy day account, once you've saved beyond that measure, it's now costing you money because you're not putting it to work in the marketplace. So what wealthy people really know is how to invest their money and how to have their money make money. And I contend at the heart of that is relationship management as well. You have to be able to have and foster and care for relationships in your life. And I think, I'll tell you this, after 2 decades, just over 2 decades in this business, actually, if you consider the real estate business, I've been in 28 years with property management. I will tell you, some of the kindest and most compassionate, agreeable people I've met and worked with over these past 2 decades plus are wealthy. That's not a preclusion of less than wealthy people being nice and kind and agreeable, but the idea that there's some corollary between wealth and not appreciating or valuing friends speaks to what you said, the media narrative or the mainstream narrative that, wealthy or greedy, etc. But if you just look at right now, the prototypical billionaire, the guy that's out there solving the most problems probably for anybody, is Elon Musk. In many, many ways, he's solving problems for people with zero money who can use Twitter, people with a little money who can suddenly be connected to the internet through his satellite system and his Starlink, and the electric car for the masses. Whether you agree with that or not, he is solving problems for people on a daily basis at all income scales, from the wealthy down to those that have very little.
And that's really what business is about. I mean, that's I mean, here's the thing. That's the essence of capitalism, right? I mean, it's the old find a need, fill a need. Find a need.
Yeah.
What is missing in the market? How can I deliver that? Can I deliver it for a viable amount of money and still be able to make a living and do that? I mean, that is the essence of capitalism, caring about what other people want. That's, I mean, if you want to, I guess if you want to boil it down to that, that's what it is. Now, is it all magnanimous of I'm just going to do it for free? Well, no, of course not, because you have to live, and that's what you're doing. You're finding something that people want, you're providing it, and you're making a living off of it. Sometimes just a basic, decent living. Sometimes you're going to make a lot of money because you're the only one who's seen the need and are filling the need. That's just the way things work.
I agree. And I think compassion is the lodestone of wealth, to be honest with you, is to have so much compassion that you are willing to sacrifice of your time and your energy and your family time to some extent to create these solutions, and sometimes to the extent of their own well-being. I mean, I think about, just going back to Elon Musk for a minute, the idea that he slept in his office and worked 100-hour weeks and all of that just sounds absolutely torturous to me, and absolutely unattractive completely, to a point where he's estranged from his kids, things like this. That's not something that I consider to be in nature, my nature. It's not my nature. I'm a family business. We invest in real estate in our own backyard because this fits our personality and our nature. We're creating wealth in that capacity. But I think I just felt like reading that study just cemented in my mind, we have to be our own critical thinkers. We have to read these kinds of studies or news, or where it's coming out of the medical community, investment community, global affairs, geopolitical, statewide, local. We have to be our own critical thinkers, read the headline and then go deeper, and then think about it and really think, wait a minute, does this fit what I witnessed? And it doesn't for me, and it didn't for me. This completely cut against the grain of what I know to be true, which is that when you solve problems, and you said find a need and fill it, you can't help but win. You can't help but get the result of that, which is wealth creation. And it's not through savings, and it's not through stabbing your friends in the back and win-lose negotiations. None of that actually equals my concept of wealth.
Well, and the thing about these studies, Chris, is I'm interested to know what were the questions that were asked, and were they asked of average Americans? Were they asked of the wealthy? Were they at, who got polled in this whole thing, and who looked at it and everything else, and what were the actual questions? Because again, if it's just more of the same entertainment and media tropes of that rich people are evil, then no wonder, the average Joe just who doesn't have anything says, of course, rich people are evil. That's what I'm shown every day on the little square box that tells me what to think, is that rich people are obviously evil and they should do it. Again, never looking at it deeper to realize these people did things, whether you're Bill Gates, who provided an operating system that allowed people to have computers in every home, or whether it's Elon Musk, or whether it's, Thomas Edison, or whoever it was that found something that people needed and wanted and desired and provided it, doesn't mean, well, Edison may have been a little evil over his fight with Tesla, but we'll just hold that back. I mean, whatever it is, it is frustrating. This is kind of the narrative, right, that's been put out there against me. Now, do we think movie stars who make millions of dollars or the Kardashians are evil? Well, of course not, because we love them. I mean, they're crazy as hell, but I mean, we love them. But anybody else that wants to make money in that way, it's wrong. We shouldn't support them, right? I mean,
I agree. I think a bumper sticker could be, don't buy the myths the media and the left love to sell. Just don't buy them. Don't buy those money myths. Don't buy them. It's baked right into our founding that you've got the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that pursuit is encompassing, in my opinion, of wealth, opportunities, and wealth creation for others through those same set opportunities and relationships. And if you don't manage relationships well, there's a really good chance you're going to find yourself maybe at the top of a pile of money, but you'll be miserable and alone. One of the saddest things in the world to me is to think in terms of Johnny Carson, provided so much joy and happiness for over 30 years on the Tonight Show, died alone, very wealthy, very alone, because of the relationships that he sacrificed apparently and reportedly again and again in his life. Wonderful entertainer, but couldn't manage relationships to save his life.
Right. I mean, as much as I admire Elon Musk, like you said, I mean, look at all the sacrifices that he's made. Good for him if that's what he wants. But at the same time, I couldn't work 100 hours a week and sleep in a back room at the office and do everything else and let my family fall apart and be happy about it. That's just me personally. If that's what you want to do, then so be it. You can't ignore the compassionate capitalism part of what he's done, but you can go, oof, man, that's a heavy price to pay. But not everybody has to pay that price, and not everybody has to make, I guess, that kind of money. Some people are happy if they're just making enough money to live, $100,000 a year or a couple $100,000 a year, then that's fine for them. And that's why you've got to do that self-analysis we talk about, because you've got to decide what does your endpoint look like?
Exactly. And that's the exciting thing to me about helping people understand the concept of becoming a backyard millionaire is in bettering your own life, the people in your community, tenants, providing safe, affordable housing for people right there, improvements in your property, increasing the values, increasing the tax base, all of it right where you are with what you've got. You do not have to become a billionaire to make a massive indent and create wealth right where you are. And that's pretty exciting. And so if you read the headline, you read the study, forget about it. You can be nice, you can be kind, and you can manage relationships really well. In fact, that is the path to wealth.
Chris Story is the man from Homer. He's written a handful of books, including The Backyard Millionaire and Born to Live. He's working on his latest fictional work, which is the new Making of Man book, which I am really looking forward to seeing and reading and performing, actually, as well. He's got his new podcast up. He's got his radio show. Man, are you working 100 hours a week and living in a room in the back or what?
But the good news is I live literally, we call it a campus. We have two offices in our home within, we're on the same cul-de-sac. And so it's where we are is what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, your commute is almost as short as mine. My commute is 15 feet from my bedroom to my studio. So, I mean, it's nice when it's that kind of commute. You can be all there and be all part of it. Chris Story, my friend, thank you so much. Appreciate you coming on board and joining us. Thanks for being part of the show.
My pleasure, Michael. Thanks for having me again.
All right. Well, you just hold the line for a second here. Here we go, folks.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Well, that study must have really just pissed you off. I mean, because I'm agitated by it, and you sound like you're a little bit frustrated by that whole. Because again, that's the mantra, right? I mean, that's the stereotypical guy with a big fat cigar in the back room telling people how to live their lives and doing all that stuff. When usually it's people who have actually produced something or done something for everyone.
The concern I've got for the most part, I agree with you 100% what you just said. And my main concern comes from, let's just call a spade, Agenda 2030. Agenda 21 was largely ignored by the mainstream, largely ignored by most people because we're just living our lives. And it seemed very far-fetched and fanciful that there's some world organization that wants to bring the top down, top tier capitalist societies, bring them down and bring the bottom up to the middle. No one has too much, no one has too little. It seems very far-fetched, and this is never going to happen. And then what happened a couple years ago in 2020/21? Now we have Agenda 2030 coming out of the United Nations, which suggests that you'll own nothing. You'll be happy. You can smoke your marijuana. You can just relax and just chill, stream your life away. Let's join the metaverse. Why worry about life when you could be part of the metaverse and own nothing and simply just be happy? This kind of study fits as just a beautiful keystone to that kind of a concept where a majority of us could be lulled into some very dark places into the future where we give up rights that are baked into our founding, and it's just too important to ignore.
Who put this study together, Chris? Who are the founders, makers, breakers of this study?
I'll send you the link. It was on the Drudge Report this morning. I'll send you a link.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's interesting. Again, I'm not a fan of that myth. In fact, it pisses me off every time because, we've heard it before. But, because to be successful, it takes more than just you. You usually have to bring other people with you. And, the only true success is when you've helped other people reach the same level that you are. I mean, that's kind of the self-fulfilling thing. Are there people who abuse the system and who, yes, absolutely. Just like in every other, every other part and paycheck and pay scale and demographic. I think Robbie said something like there's people, different personalities. There's a whole scheme of personalities in every demographic. That's like saying every police officer is perfect. No, we know it doesn't happen that way. Just like that, there are evil rich people or mean rich people. There are also mean poor people. People are people, man. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, the pejoratives on either side of this debate, but just this concept that's been shoved constantly. And this is nothing new, but the thing that I think is new is if you combine this notion of just be happy, don't be one of the people that wants money and wealth, be happy, be kind, be compassionate, fits so neatly snugly. It's like a snuggie, if you will, over the Agenda 2030, which is a very dark.
Well,
horse.
it's the whole communistic communal, we all support each other and everybody's kumbaya and nobody really needs all that. Do you really need 2 houses? Do you really need 3 cars when there's only 2 of you? Do you really need, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, but I desire, I've filled a need and I've helped other people. So if it's mine, it's none of your damn business kind of thing,
Set your thermostat to 55 and put on a sweater. Come on, do your part, Michael.
I did that for years, by the way, not because the UN told me to, but because it made more sense for my family financially. We set the thermostat at 58 and said, here's your minky blanket. Just lay on the couch and be quiet. That's how it works around here. And that's why I don't live in Fairbanks anymore. Right there. That's one of the reasons why. All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much, my friend. I owe you some emails. I was out yesterday, a little bit under the weather. So, but I'm back at it today. So I'll get with you and we'll get back to you. But appreciate you coming on board as always every Tuesday and being part of the show.
All right, Michael, take care.
I guess I'll call you from now on because that seems to work. I don't know what the deal is, but
okay. I'll be ready.
You be ready. You just sit by that phone and I will call you. You wait until I call.
Just like you never call me for prom, but you will call me on Tuesday.
I will call you on Tuesday sometime on Tuesday. I don't know when it'll be. You just wait and stare at that phone until it rings, okay? Thanks.
Good.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. Chris Story, the man from Homer, coming on board the show. Are pipe smokers nicer than cigar smokers? I don't know. I've done both. Does that make me bad? I don't know. I just don't know. All right, what should we do? Should we open up the phone lines? We could open up the phone lines. I suppose that would be the way to do it. I gotta type in a password here. I suppose we could just do that. You guys want to do the phones? Shall I open them up? Sure, why not? All right, I'll open up the phone lines and we'll get things rocking and rolling. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share, like and follow. Let's do it. Oh, okay. Well, hi, how are you? You ready to go? One more segment of the program this morning because, well, why not? Because 3 is a nice odd number, and we got 3 segments of every hour. So we'll just do that. How about that? The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We are into the final segment of the show this morning and ready to rock and roll, I suppose. I'll open up the phone lines because that's just how it goes. And it gives me an opportunity to remind you that today's program is being brought to you by the letter S. No, sorry. Today's program is being brought to you by your friends at Satellite West. You can find them at satellitewest.com. That's right, satellitewest.com. From West Twin to Wasilla, from Menchumina to Metlakatla, from Aniak to Anaktuvik, wherever it is in the state of Alaska that you are at, Satellite West has got you covered for, to keep you connected with text messages, with emails, surfing the internet, making phone calls. That's what Satellite West is all about, and they are proud to sponsor this show across the state of Alaska. So feel free to go over there and check them out at satellitewest.com. They have got a full range of items, and of course you can find all their local dealers and stuff as well out on the website at satellitewest.com. Thank you for sponsoring the program to all the folks over there at Satellite West. Okay, one final segment today. Whatever you want to talk about, if you want to chat on any of the things that we hit on today, I would love to hear what you have to say. It's definitely been an interesting discussion. Let's run over to the phones and get started to see what folks are saying. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Carlene in Kodiak.
Good morning, Carlene.
Morning, Michael. About yesterday's topics with Senator Myers. It was excellent because he was speaking the truth to us, but it also was unsettling because the direction that the state is going in, is to put all of our eggs in one basket. And if you listen and watch the DVDs, listen to economists, they tell you to diversify and don't put all of your eggs in one basket. And the direction is to just take the PFD and the state, live on that. What happens if there's a crash,
Right. What happens if what happens if the stock market takes a wicked turn, which it has in the past, and what do we live on then, right? That's what you're talking about?
Yes, we need all of these small businesses, and we need babysitters. We just need all of it. I think that's about all I have to say, Michael.
All right. Well, Carlene, thank you for calling in this morning and sounding off. I agree. Diversification in the economy is what we need. And I think what the whole thing with Rob is that he's pointing out is that we're not diversifying the economy. They're severing the economy. They're making so that the government is not dependent on what happens in the private. There is no incentive to diversify because they feel like, well, we've got this big pot of money that's just going to keep spinning off money every year. So why do we need to diversify? Why do we need to worry about that? Why would we need to worry about regulations and licensing and things that are, that are hindering the private sector? Why would that matter? Because we've got all this money coming in. You're right. There is no incentive to diversify at that point. Because if they're going to live off the permanent fund, the corpus of the permanent fund and the earnings of that, they don't care about diversifying. And of course, because politicians historically have been tremendously short-sighted, and they don't remember the last crash and what it's going to do. But it is a volatile resource, that's for sure. Thank you for calling in, Carlene. I appreciate you being part of it today and sounding off. That leaves lines open. If you would like to be part of the program today, all you got to do is give us a call, 907-433-3150, 907-433-3150. Feel free to give us a call and sound off on anything that we've got going on. I think that really is a lesson that we didn't touch on yesterday with Rob much. We talked a lot about the severance and the separation between the public and the private economy. We didn't talk about the fact that stifles that diversification that we really need here in the state of Alaska. Although it highlights that diversification comes from the private sector. That's the thing. The diversification that we need in the state is going to come from the private sector. It's not going to come from the government. Again, government doesn't create anything. Government is a net consumer of wealth. They don't create wealth. They don't even really create jobs. I mean, I know they'll argue that, well, we're building a bridge, and so we're going to be employing these people, so we did create jobs. No. You created an opportunity for companies to come in and take your contract. The companies created the jobs. If they have all, built their entire business model on government largesse, I suppose you could argue in some ways that is. But again, it's a very short-lived thing. It's not a self-perpetuating cycle. That's where true wealth is created, is when it's self-sustaining. And government doesn't do that. It's a one-time push. It's a one-time blip that lasts for a year or 2 or 3 or whatever the length of the single, contract is. That's part of the problem. All right, let's go over. We'll take one more call before we close out for today. Tomorrow on the program, Mike Shower is going to be joining us, potentially Calvin Schregge as well. Let's go over here and take this final call before we go for the day. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Morning, Michael. This is Bert Politidic. I just wanted to do a short rant this morning.
Okay, quickly.
It's amazing that we have to sit here and continuously listen to legislators tell us everyday Alaskans that we don't have no clue what really happens down in Juneau. I will say that many of us don't, but there are a slim minority like myself that follow everything that's going on down there in Juneau, and to constantly keep claiming that your one voice, their one voice out of the 59 just really doesn't matter. That's not why we elected them to go down there to Juneau. We elected them to go down there and fight and change things, not sit there to play along to get along.
Sure.
My rant's over. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate that, Bert. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, we didn't elect them to be nothing, but at the same time, we have to understand that's one of the reasons why the first charter of changes is to change out the players, because they can't do it alone. If you are one guy who's calling and crying in the wilderness for cuts, and yet you don't have any support from anybody else, pretty soon you just get worn down and there's nothing else you can do. So while you're right, we need more than just the one doing it. I don't necessarily hold any single legislator accountable for not moving the needle all by themselves. I want them to hold strong. But I also understand that this is, it's a team sport, unfortunately. We got to get the right members in there. Got to go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. All right, my friends. Well, thank you for being part of it today, for coming on board and joining us. I appreciate it. Tomorrow, Mike Shower, maybe Calvin Schregge. We'll see what happens. Until then, be kind, love one another, live well. We'll see you tomorrow.
Goodbye.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.